Imagine an archipelago where volcanoes smoke like ancient dragons, oceans crash against jagged cliffs, and cherry blossoms bloom fleetingly, almost like time itself is fragile here. This is Japan, a land both isolated and irresistibly connected to the currents of the world. But how did this nation, born from scattered islands and volcanic fury, evolve into a unified empire, a cultural powerhouse, and a global economic titan? The answer lies in a story of survival, adaptation, and unyielding human ambition. Yet, the key turning points often lie hidden in the shadows of mountains and beneath the soil where our ancestors once tread. By the end of this journey, you'll see Japan not just as a country on a map, but as a living narrative of resilience and transformation. Japan is not a single landmass. It is a constellation of islands, over 6,800 in total, stretching like pearls along the Pacific Ring of Fire. Its four largest islands, Honshu, Hokkaido, Kyushu, and Shikoku, form the spine of human settlement. Mountains cover nearly 70% of the terrain, forcing populations to cluster along coastal plains and river valleys. Rivers like the Shinano and Tone carved fertile grounds for rice cultivation, while jagged coastlines both invited and repelled foreign contact. This geography shaped not just agriculture, but defense. Japan's natural isolation created both protection and vulnerability. For centuries, it was insulated from the mainland, yet it remained tantalizingly within reach of Chinese, Korean, and later European traders. But geography was a double-edged sword. While mountains shielded Japan from invasions, they also fragmented political control, fostering regional power bases and constant internal rivalries. Natural resources were unevenly distributed. Coal and iron existed, but not in abundance, forcing ingenuity and trade to compensate. Japan's location near major sea routes made it a hub for cultural exchange, but also a target for foreign ambition. Here, the land itself dictated human behavior. Settlements grew along riverbanks, fishing became a staple livelihood, and rice paddies shaped social structures. The very islands that isolated the people also forced them into innovation, resilience, and intricate political organization. Evidence suggests humans arrived in Japan at least 30,000 years ago. These Paleolithic communities survived by hunting, fishing, and gathering. Archaeologists have unearthed stone tools, rudimentary ornaments, and the earliest signs of ritualistic behavior, tiny windows into lives defined by uncertainty. Fast forward to around 14,000 BC, the Jomon period emerges. Named for the cord-marked pottery that survives to this day, Jomon people were masterful hunters, foragers, and fishers. Imagine a family by the riverbank, weaving baskets, roasting chestnuts, children chasing small deer. Life was hard, yet vibrant. These communities were not simple. They exhibited complex social organization, spiritual beliefs, and artistic expression. By 300 BC, the Yaya people arrived from the Korean peninsula, bringing rice cultivation, metallurgy, and new social structures. Villages expanded, irrigation systems were engineered, and social hierarchies formed. In one small village, a farmer might toil from sunrise to sunset planting rice, while a local elder mediated disputes, a microcosm of order and survival that would echo through centuries of Japanese history. These early settlers laid the foundation for permanent communities, centralized authority, and the eventual rise of political states. The land, the rivers, and the seas weren't just scenery. They were active participants in shaping human ambition and social cohesion. The first significant political structure emerged in the Yaya and Kofun periods, roughly from 250 BC to 538 CE. Japan was no longer a patchwork of small villages. Tribal confederations coalesced into early kingdoms, with the Yamato clan rising as a dominant force. The Yamato rulers claimed descent from the sun goddess Amaterasu, linking divinity with authority, a powerful blend that legitimized control. Early capitals appeared in fertile river valleys, armies were formed, and rudimentary taxation systems collected rice and labor to maintain infrastructure. Yet, these developments were never uncontested. Rival clans constantly jockeyed for influence, alliances were fragile, and rebellions simmered beneath the surface. A local warrior might practice archery all day, knowing that a rival clan could strike at any moment. Every human action was tied to survival and power. The Yamato court learned early that unity required both spiritual authority and military might. But this fragile system would not last. Forces beyond their control, both from across the sea and within their own borders, were gathering. And Japan, for all its isolation, was about to face challenges that would redefine its identity. 1. Introduction of Buddhism, 538 C. When Buddhist monks arrived from Korea, they brought not just a religion, but an entirely new worldview. The Yamato court embraced Buddhism as a tool to consolidate power, founding temples that became centers of education, culture, and politics. Imagine a young monk kneeling in a newly built temple, candles flickering on intricate carvings. Ordinary citizens marveled at the architecture, while rulers saw influence over the minds of their people. Yet Buddhism also clashed with Shinto practices, creating tension between old and new beliefs. This fusion of ideas would define Japanese spirituality and governance for centuries. Mini-hook. But what seemed like spiritual enlightenment masked deeper struggles for control and legitimacy. 2. Heian period and aristocratic culture, 794 to 1185. The capital moved to Heian-kyo, modern Kyoto, ushering in an era of courtly refinement. Poetry, calligraphy, and literature flourished, most famously the tale of Genji. Yet beneath the silk robes and incense-scented halls, the provinces were restless. Aristocrats controlled the capital, but regional warriors, samurai, grew powerful, enforcing taxes and quelling rebellions. Here, a low-ranking samurai might patrol rice fields, loyal to a distant lord whose decisions could change the fate of an entire village. Mini-hook, and then, the illusion of aristocratic stability would shatter under the weight of military ambition. 3. Rise of the samurai and feudal Japan, 1185 to 1603. The Genpei War culminated in the establishment of the Kamakura shogunate. Power shifted from emperors to shoguns, military rulers whose authority depended on force, alliances, and loyalty. A samurai, swathed in armor, might ride through misty forests at dawn, executing orders that determined life or death for his clan. The feudal system reshaped Japanese society. Landholdings became currency, warriors became the backbone of governance, and loyalty defined morality. Yet Japan remained vulnerable to external forces. Mongol invasions in 1274 and 1281 were repelled, in part due to typhoons, the legendary kamikaze or divine winds. Here geography intervened again, saving Japan from conquest but intensifying internal rivalries. Mini-hook. But this martial society was only one step toward transformation. Something greater loomed on the horizon. 4. Tokugawa unification, 1603 to 1868. After centuries of conflict, Tokugawa Ieyasu unified Japan. Edo, modern Tokyo, became the political capital. A strict social order was enforced. Samurai, farmers, artisans, and merchants each had defined roles. Consider a merchant walking the bustling streets of Edo, navigating restrictions on movement and trade. The shogunate enforced peace, but it was a peace of control, curfews, surveillance, and a rigid hierarchy. Foreign influence was cut almost entirely under the Sokoka policy, isolating Japan for over 200 years. Mini-hook. What seemed like a golden era of stability concealed a brittle society, one untested against the pressures of modernity and global forces. 5. Meiji Restoration and Modernization, 1868 to 1912. The arrival of Commodore Perry's black ships in 1853 shattered isolation. Japan faced a choice: remain insular or embrace change. The Meiji Restoration restored imperial power, abolished the shogunate, and launched a frenetic modernization program. Factories rose, railroads stitched the islands together, and a conscripted army transformed Japan into a regional power. Ordinary citizens felt the shock. A farmer now learned factory work, children entered Western-style schools, and women confronted new social expectations. This rapid transformation enabled Japan to resist colonization, yet the pace caused social friction. Traditions collided with modernization, sparking debates about identity and loyalty. Victories in the Sino-Japanese and Russo-Japanese wars proved its military prowess. Urban centers swelled, industrial output surged, and a sense of national pride took root. Yet beneath the triumphant banners, ordinary people bore the weight. A factory worker in Osaka labored 12-hour shifts to feed industrial expansion. A soldier stationed in Manchuria endured harsh winters for an imperial mission. The human cost of modernization was profound. Political reforms, including the Meiji Constitution of 1889, created a parliamentary framework, but real power remained concentrated among elites. Japan balanced precariously between tradition and ambition, a nation molded by geography, history, and human will. Today, Japan is a global powerhouse, economically, technologically, and culturally. Cities like Tokyo and Osaka pulse with innovation. Kyoto and Nara preserve the whispers of ancient dynasties. Japan's maritime position, once a shield, now connects it to global trade, diplomacy, and culture. Yet the lessons of history remain. Mountains and rivers shaped settlement. Feudalism taught centralized control. Isolation taught self-reliance. And openness taught adaptation. Modern Japan carries the DNA of every era, from Jomon pottery to Meiji railroads. Proof that geography, power struggles, and human ambition are inseparable from identity. Japan's story is not just about islands or emperors, shoguns, or samurai. It is the story of human resilience in the face of isolation and upheaval, of culture blossoming alongside conflict, and of a nation perpetually balancing tradition and transformation. In the end, Japan teaches us a universal truth. Identity is forged in the tension between circumstance and choice, geography and ambition, history and the human heart. And in that tension, the nation continues to write its story, one that is still unfolding, one that invites us to reflect on the delicate, indomitable spirit of humanity itself.